We know that whenever these things happen, right, people panic. If we can just get 5 seconds for somebody to like, this just happened, I can think and make a sound decision, right? All the science and research shows like muscle memory is going to help you every time, right? So as long as you practice that, as long as you're training your mind like, hey, I need to stop, I need to think, everything will work out the way it should.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
As educators, we don't typically start each day reviewing what to do to save a life that day. When in-service and professional development days come, typically limited time is given to life-saving techniques. In the midst of lessons to prepare, materials to collect, meetings to attend, and just so many other responsibilities, preparedness to save a life is typically not a priority for that day. I mean, there could be any number of reasons for that, but likely we find that day's responsibilities more pressing and, of course, more expected. The need to take action to save a life during a school day may be rare. But are you prepared? Do you know what to do? That's the topic of today's episode here on the Teacher Edition podcast. For all those of you who are joining us, welcome. I'm glad you're choosing to continue to tune in, even with all the polls and different routines of this time of year. It's a great time to get caught up on episodes and just to grow and learn as an educator. As always, I want to invite you to visit us on social media. We are Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook, and on Instagram and TikTok, we are Teacher Edition Pod. Please also take a minute to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss out on a single episode. By the way, if you haven't done so already, check us out on YouTube, where you can watch the show as well. One last reminder, and that's to go to our website, teachereditionpodcast.com. You can get more information about the podcast there. You can sign up for newsletters, and you can even listen to the show right there. You can also submit a question while you're there. We've had many questions come in over the past couple of years, and as we head into year 3 of the Teacher Edition podcast, I am looking forward to even more of those coming in so we can include them in our episodes. Keep them coming. Okay, so as I mentioned as we began today, I want to talk about preparedness to save lives, and of course, specifically in the school environment. To talk about this topic, I'm super excited to have Sandy Gaddy with us. Sandy has built his career in high-pressure environments, starting first as a firefighter and an EMS provider in one of North Carolina's busiest emergency medical systems. His first-hand experience responding to emergencies gave him a deep understanding of the challenges that are faced by first responders and public safety professionals. Now he's serving as an account executive at Active Defender, and he uses his expertise to help organizations enhance their safety, security, and emergency preparedness. He works closely with organizations and with individuals to provide solutions that empower those individuals to be prepared and to ensure that they have the tools that they're going to need to protect lives effectively. Sandy works with schools, both in schools and at conferences, which is actually where I first came into contact with him. I'm really excited to have his expertise weigh in on this topic today. Sandy, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
And I'm excited.
I really like that introduction, by the way. You make me sound, pretty important. I really appreciate that.
Well, good. Mission accomplished.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
so now I get to start hitting you with the questions.
Yeah,
let's
go for it.
Okay, so I would really love to hear more about your background. It sounds like you had quite the diverse experience as you've on your journey here, and in some, I guess, pretty intense and demanding positions. So tell us more about that and what brought you to where you are now with what you're doing with schools. Tell us more.
So I started back in like 2012. I started as being a firefighter. I live in Carthage, North Carolina. So here at our local department, I started volunteering. I'm like, man, I really like this, So the opportunity presented itself for me to go to the fire academy. I did it. I loved it. I started working a little bit, but I really loved the medical aspect of it. Right. So I began to really further, get more knowledge about it. And then I jumped into a career working in the EMS service.
Good for you.
So from there, I really gained a lot of experience as far as responding to different incidences. Checking up on things. A lot of people forget to check on things, and just the simple things like that.
Okay, so we're talking about protecting young lives,
Yes,
and a
ma'am.
significant aspect of that is being prepared, so knowing what to do.
Yes, ma'am.
The term, or I guess maybe it's the phrase, stop the bleed, has becoming increasingly present in the educational arena, and maybe elsewhere too. I live in the educational world. So I've heard that more and more in the past few years. And actually, that's what you were speaking on when I first crossed paths with you at the conference. So talk to us about Stop the Bleed. What is it? What can you tell us?
So Stop the Bleed is a national campaign. And what that campaign does, it works to teach everyone how to stop life-threatening bleeding, right? So it has a few different steps that goes along with the program. It's not too complex. It is super simple. Anyone can do it. And I recommend everybody do it. I mean, not just teachers. I know we're mainly talking to, teachers and people who work in schools here.
Sure.
But I know we have a lot of mom and dads also, right? We have kids, we have
Sure.
boys that like to, pop wheelies on their bikes and, stuff like that. So anyone can always know some simple techniques on how to stop it.
Okay, so I know that you do complete training sessions on Stop the Bleed. I know that would be really tricky to cover, completely here. Share with us some of the main elements of Stop the Bleed. Just give us an overview.
Yeah. So some of the main elements. I always like to reiterate, like when things happen, we never want to use these techniques to like delay calling 911. Right. So if someone
Sure.
is in an emergency, we always want to call 911. Right. So even if we have intentions on trying to help this person, we still want to call 911 to make sure that that next level of care is on the way.
Sure.
But some of the things that that the Stop the Bleed program covers is like direct pressure. So if you see, like a wound and you can get something and cover it, apply direct pressure to it until the bleeding stops. Still, we want to call 911. Also in the program, it goes over using tourniquets and stuff like that. So like, obviously I can't go over that, on the podcast, even though I would love to do it, because I truly believe that everybody should do it. But yeah, it goes over just a few techniques. It usually takes like an hour to go through everything. And then you do like a hands-on practical and stuff like that. So really cool program.
Okay, so it sounds like it is pretty comprehensive, pretty thorough of a strategy or a plan, I guess. So you said everyone. So is this something you would suggest everyone, really in the real sense of the word, is trained on at a school? Or would it just be maybe the nurse, the admins? What would you say?
When I say everyone, I mean everyone. Hey, even you, Jenny, if you want to learn Stop the Bleed, I can teach it to you.
I'm game.
And like I said, it's super simple techniques, but it's stuff that you can use in any environment.
Great. Okay, so as I somewhat alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, the opportunity to put life-saving procedures into action at a school will likely be rare, we'll say that, or at least we hope so. So that being said, why do you feel it's important for school personnel to have something like Stop the Bleed knowledge, especially when there are so many other things that teachers have to learn and participate in? Why is that important for you?
Well, so it's important because we always hear the term like first responders, right? But if you're a teacher, you're inside of your classroom. If you're out on a playground, you're technically that first responder, right? You're that first person that's there that can help render aid to this person, right? So granted, yes, we are going to call 911, but if this is something like I can stop the bleed and stop a person from bleeding out before 911 gets there, then that's something that I'll do.
Yeah, good thinking. I love that perspective. You are the one. You're right there. And if you're not prepared, like we're talking about today, every minute counts at that point.
Yep, and like I always try to tell everyone, right? So once we call 911, then we can figure out, like, hey, is this a bleed that I can stop? Am I going to hold pressure? Am I going to apply a tourniquet? That's when we can get into these other stuff, the other steps. I'm sorry, but never delay calling 911.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely important. Okay, so the topic today is being prepared to save a life, particularly at a school. We've talked about Stop the Bleed, touched on that, the importance of it in school. Everyone who's listening, whether you're at a school, whoever it may be, take time to go learn more about that. Do you know what to do? So I want to move on from that. There are many other incidents that could result in a life-threatening situation. We know it's not all about the bleeding. So let's say, for example, there's a cardiac incident, okay? Maybe in athletics or PE, or seriously, I'm just in the classroom with a teacher. AEDs have become increasingly more present in schools over the past, let's say, 10 years. Give us your thoughts on AEDs at schools. Are they a necessity? Are they a bonus? And for schools that have them, what do they need to do with maintenance? I mean, okay, we have it. Now, what do we need to do to maintain it?
Okay, yeah. So for the first part, as far as like being a necessity, I truly believe every school should have an AED. every school.
Good.
So, and a lot of people always focus on like, hey, we want to keep this kid safe. We want to, we have to, the teachers have to look out for each other also, right?
Sure.
There are a bunch of conditions that, a bunch of things that could happen that are not like traumatic related that could happen with people. Having an AED on standby is truly, like a life-saving intervention. And as far as like people that already have them in their schools, one thing I do notice is, so a lot of your public schools, your big charter schools, they have a lot of resources coming in, as far as like the county, the state, everybody's ensuring that they're okay. Right. So for like some of our smaller schools, our smaller Christian schools to be, specific, those schools, like, they don't get as much love as, as we would hope for them to get. Right. So those are the schools that really have to, like double down and truly make sure that they check everything. So for instance, like the AED pads. So usually, well, back in the day when I worked EMS, when I'd go different places, one of the things like that I used to do is just like, hey, let me look in the AED and see if the pads are out of date. Believe it or not, it was like 50-50 if it was or not, right? So I'd like to say like, hey, I found more that were out of date and more that, but it was truly like 50-50. It's truly a coin flip.
And out of date means they expire, right?
So a lot of people don't know. So when a lot of companies come, like they may sell a school like an AED, right? So they'll sell it to you. You're like, okay, hey, I'm good. A lot of people don't know, like, A, the batteries go out of date, and then B, the pads also go out of date. So those are things that you want to put on a regular schedule so that you make sure that you're checking, right? And then another thing that the pads come in two different sizes, adult and pediatric, right? So you want to make sure that you just making sure that stuff's in date. You can always open the AED. It talks to you and it does a self-check, but just make sure that somebody in your organization is checking those things.
Yeah. Good reminder. You don't want to have to find that out in the midst of needing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So over the past couple of years, we've had several episodes about school safety here on the podcast. It's such an important topic. There is just so much responsibility on administrators and on teachers to protect their students from harm and to be prepared when something does happen. Tragic incidents at schools, they're horrible, they're heartbreaking, but they're compounded when they include unpreparedness and not knowing what to do, being disorganized, doing the wrong thing. Sandy, in your experience, what are some different ways to challenge school staff to be prepared, to get them thinking, not just to go through the drills, but to stop and think about what would I need to do in this scenario and how can I be ready? What do you recommend?
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you asked. So yes, just to circle back, yes, I do work for Active Defender. So the CEO, my boss, his name's Jim Boyd.
Yes.
He kind of, he opened my eyes with the stop and think like drill, right? So if you just imagine, right, if you're inside of your school, you're one of your administrators. So say right now it's 4:26. If we're inside of a school, if we hear a loud boom, what are we going to do? Right. So those are the kind of things and the kind of the mindsets that you have to get. What we always recommend is like, hey, like if you're at a school, just get on the intercom and say, hey, everyone, I want everyone to stop. And just think like, hey, if this were to happen, what would you do or where would you go? Right. So doing those different drills, just getting the mind thinking, that right there helps, 10 times. Right. So if your body and your mind thinks like, hey, if this incident happens, I at least know like I'm able to think through this and get myself to safety. Right. So it usually takes 2 to 3 minutes a day. I mean, not even a day, just 2 to 3 minutes to just actually do the drill, but significant improvement as far as like your mental aspect of your staff and students.
Seems like it would be that if you did those enough, as people, maybe they're out on the playground or they're out somewhere and they see a unique situation, then, their brain pops into, okay, what would I do? If that person walking by actually jumped the fence, what would I do? Or, so I like how you're kind of creating that habit by creating a very intentional environment for them to stop and think about a scenario.
Yes, ma'am.
Love that.
And
yes.
We also, we know that whenever these things happen, right, the first people panic, right? So if we can if we can just get 5 seconds for somebody to like, hey, this just happened, I can think and make a sound decision, right? So that is what truly helps save lives.
Yeah.
It's not the panic, but can you stop for 5 seconds to make a sound decision for you, and if it's teachers, for them and for the students also.
Yeah, and you can't assume that's just going to happen if you never practice it. So I love that. The first time we often find out how people will respond is in that type of situation, and we definitely don't want to find out
No,
how
absolutely.
that is for the first time.
I mean, all the science and research shows like muscle memory is going to help you every time, right? So as long as you practice that, as long as you're training your mind like, hey, I need to stop, I need to think, everything will work out the way it should.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so just before we close, I have one other question that maybe a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I think it's still very much connected to this topic. So often in school crisis situations, especially when a student is involved, people come forward later and say, "Oh, now that this happened, I did notice such and such," or, he or she said something odd, but I didn't think anything of it until now. I'm guessing in your experience, you've had some insights on this. Talk with us about the importance of noticing behavioral changes in students. Like, where do you draw the line? You hate to make everything a big deal, but where is that line on what to ignore as just a bad day and what to really, I guess, take note of, even report? What do you think?
Honestly, JD, that's another topic. I'm kind of glad you brought that up. So I truly believe in my heart, like a lot of things start with prevention, right? So if you have a kid who's usually they're usually very eager to raise their hand in class, they're always, eager to participate. And then one day they come in, they're like kind of withdrawn and they're like, hey, I don't really want to participate. A lot of teachers just, I don't want to say a lot of teachers, but most people just chalk that up as like a bad day, right? So,
sure.
But I truly think like jotting those down, talking to this student or having a counselor talk to these students, that truly makes a difference. Because there's a lot of stuff out here that helps with school safety. Even, I work for Active Defender, but I truly believe like prevention is a way that we need to go. There is a bunch of different things out there. Even at Active Defender, we offer, we have a bunch of different things, but we call it behavioral analysis. And what it does is it allows those behavioral changes to be reported early, right? So you can make a report, you can send those over to the counselor, and those can be followed up with, and documented appropriately.
Oh, that's excellent. Good. Yeah. Great resources. And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes as well, so Certainly. People can go check that out. We've mentioned it in the past, but it'd be great to bring that to the forefront on that. Well, as I anticipated, you have brought much to the conversation today. Personally, I just want to say I'm so grateful for your experience and your expertise. And now, especially since you're using that to help schools be even better prepared to protect and to support their staff and their students. Sandy, it's been a privilege to have you with us today. Thank you for what you're doing every day, but thank you also for taking time to be with us on the show today.
And yes, ma'am. And then if I can add, Jenny, I will also leave my email. Anyone that has any kind of safety related questions, please shoot them over. If I can't answer it, I have a pretty good Rolodex of contacts, so we can get your questions answered. If something that you're not sure about, just shoot them over. Let me know.
Thank you for that very kind offer. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And listeners, thank you for joining us today as well. I hope you are walking away with some good ideas and have been challenged to be prepared in every way you can. Just a reminder to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day, but it's not just any day. Every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Go do what God has called you to do.